it is easy. For instance, if I say, how many years have you studied Latin? I say in Latin, quot annos lingue studuistine latine. I tell them, notice, you answer by repeating what I said. Quot annos, I've used an accusative case, haven't I? So when you answer, you use the accusative case. You say, septem annos, decem annos. Now, studuisti lingue, I didn't say linguam. Lingue, dative case. It means that studere, the verb to study, takes the dative, not the accusative. So you answer with the dative. You say, septem annos, lingue latine studui. And you go from the second person to the first person. Is this the easiest thing in the world? And then, for instance, why don't they learn how to say, nomen meum est Josephus, ista mulier est mater mea, iste vir pater meus est, is my father. And starting like this, you go on. And it becomes a very easy problem. See, but professors don't do that. So it becomes something like, as if you were studying linguistic archaeology. You see? And so in Italy, I don't know, they say that the West enemies of Latin are the Italians. Now, this Pope, I think, tries to insist on the return to Latin in the liturgies was one. He said, they can say Mass in Latin if they want to. If they want to. It's rather ambiguous. But it is important not for ecclesiastical purposes, but for culture. Because you see, you do not know English perfectly without Latin. It is impossible. And then Latin gives you a great solid basis, because it teaches you, it disciplines your mind. It also honeycombs it, but it disciplines it first. Because you cannot translate one sentence of Latin without a logical analysis, as you know. You have to know what a subject is, what a predicate is, what an object is. And this is what is missing in our schools here. That's why in general European students of languages are better than American students, because of their solid foundation in logical analysis, in grammar. The Americans are rather poor connoisseurs of grammar in general, you see. And so this is the importance of Latin. And besides, we said other things, the double keyboard, what you can render, and another cannot, the resources that he gives you, and so on. Any other question? Yes?
Who is your favorite author?
There are moments when you are tired even of Bach. You prefer Offenbach at times. You know what I mean? There are moments when you are not tuned to that kind of thinking, to those emotions, you see. So it depends on how we feel, what poet we want for that particular need of ours. In a moment of sadness, you don't want certain poems, you want other poems. So composers and poets are chosen according to one's spiritual needs. Yes. But I may say, for instance, I used to love Wordsworth. I wrote my thesis. And now somehow all the Lucy poems, which I admire, I don't go back to them very frequently. Robert Browning, you see, I love more today. Robert Browning and Swan, yeah, I think. Then Houseman, it is terse poetry, very concise and terse. So there are poets, but it depends on our spiritual needs. Yes?
Professore, you speak many languages.
A few.
When did you discover that you also speak the language we call poetry?
When I first, what?
When did you discover that you also speak the language we call poetry?
Well, you see, it is part of you, and perhaps you cannot determine a precise date of inception. So on. It is part of you, and you do not realize. But I was always restless about words. I always wanted to play with words. I remember I was 8, and our teacher, elementary grades, of course, had spoken of the fact that poets receive a laurel wreath. Yeah. And I remember, of course, I went home, and since my mother was a seamstress, there were so many pieces of things, and I chose for a purple ribbon something, and I placed it around my brow and looked at myself in the mirror. I still didn't know what I wanted out of life. But I remember that episode when that purple ribbon around my brow enchanted me somehow. So I looked at it and looked at it. I don't know what it meant, but you see, it is very hard. But I think I wrote my first things around age of 12, I would say, because I met Gabriele D'Annunzio, and I remember he read a sonnet that I had written for him, and I was 13 then. It was July 1937, and he died in March 1st, 1938. So I was 12, I would say. That was the inception. Yes.
Excuse me, Professor JTusiani, would you expressed a beautiful story about your experience with St. Padre Pio to the students of the Montfort. Could you communicate, could you tell us that story? Could you tell the audience of your experience with St. Padre Pio?
Oh, I mean, you are familiar with him. Oh, I see. In those days it was very easy to go to him, because before these thousands of pilgrims went to San Giovanni Rotondo, and we used to walk from San Marco, my hometown, to San Giovanni. And so I noticed, as I was saying, many strange things. Of course, I cannot call them miraculous, because I did not know then what a miracle meant or is. But many episodes. I remember he was a very rough individual. He was the son of peasants. He was not known for his theological studies. He was no Ratzinger. But he spent his time in the confessional, and he was at times rude, because he could read the minds, you see. And so he knew when somebody went to confession to him, just out of curiosity, said, out, non sei preparato, via, 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 via. I'm not prepared, out. Yes, he could tell that. And I remember a moment that made everybody shiver was at communion time. He would come to you with a host, and he would look at you with those penetrating eyes. And he seemed to withdraw the host, as if you were not worthy. Say, custodiat animam tuam in vitam aeternam. And you tremble in those moments. So that I remember. And then when during the war, many people went to him, Father, when will the war end? He spoke dialect most of the time. What do I know? I'm not a gypsy. Non sono zingaro. Things like that, you see. I remember one day, in fact, when I see a monument, in my town there is a monument. His two spiritual fathers were from my town, Padre Agostino and Padre Soda. There is a monument with 3 statues. These 2 monks raising St. Pius out of their hands, something like that. You know? And so when I see him, I said, you owe me an apology, dear father. You owe me an apology. I'll tell you why. One day, I was I served Mass of another Capuchin monk. And at the end of the Mass, we had to go back to the sacristy. And so I had the missal in my hands, and I preceded the priest. And when I opened the door, Padre Pio was at that moment hearing the confession of an old man, so he was shouting. So when he saw the door open, he said to me, "Ma non vedi che stai confessando? Don't you see they're confessing? Via." But I had to go in, the priest was after me, and the priest said, "Come on, cammina." So I went in. When he saw the priest after me, then he realized that I had to go in. So he said nothing. Okay, just quiet. So when I see the star, I said, "You owe me an apology." Okay, there's so many episodes, you know, and yeah, okay. Any other question? Yes? I saw a hand there.
Magister, in your conversation with the students earlier, you alluded to the fact that expression comes to us in the garb of various languages. Just what is that garb worn by the Latin language? What is its essay, its being?
The Latin. Latin, you said?
Yes.
Well, I don't know why certain reactions to actions come to you in Latin or in English or in your own native dialect. But certainly the Latin, you see, especially if you use the Latin quantity, gives you somehow an impression of speaking a solemn language, detaches you from ordinary circumstances. It is as if you were transported to another region, to another climate. I don't know, it gives you the sensation of some noble heritage. As if you were, see, sometimes you see, I say to myself when I read a line, I was reading an article about one of my poems, Lucis ad fondem veme future, take me to the source of the future light. Lucis ad fondem veme secure, future. And see, it's a satisfaction that you cannot describe. And at the moment you think that perhaps if Virgil were around you, were close to you, would say, "Good, I understand you." Because sometimes we wonder if those ancient poets would understand our modern idiom. We wonder. Yes?
We have time for one more question.
One more question.
Please.
Yes?
This has nothing to do with Latin. I would like to know of your first meeting with your father.
Well, I wrote a book about it. It is called. It is called La parola difficile. It's in Italian. The difficult word, which was Papa, a word that I had not pronounced until I was 23 and a half. You see, and so in this book I speak of the impact, the difficulties, and then the slow becoming accustomed to this stranger who happens to be your father. You see, and you want to see how much of him is in you, and so forth. And so it is interesting. You have to know, but of course it had its difficult moments, and then it had its rewarding, magnificent moments. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Professor Tusiani, on behalf of all of us here tonight,
who have had this wondrous privilege to meet you and to have been delighted by your words and wisdom and charm, please accept this small gift as a token of our gratitude and a memory of your visit with us here at the Montfort Academy. Please.
Oh, I see that. But I want to open it. Oh, okay. The beautiful pen. Huh? See? So they're forcing me to write some more, you see. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We would also like to offer a token of our gratitude to the Distinguished Speaker Series sponsor, Mr. Lawrence Oriana, and to Michael Tusiani, who arranged for Il Professore to be with us here tonight. Gentlemen, would you please come forward? Please, Mr. Oriana, Mr. Tusiani. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay and enjoy refreshments, meet our distinguished speaker and other distinguished guests, and please arrive home safely. Thank you for being here tonight. God bless you all.